All right, today we are diving into one of philosophy's most challenging and honestly most rewarding thinkers, Søren Kierkegaard. Have you ever felt that faith should be something more? Something more than just a comfortable Sunday morning habit? Well, if you have, then you are absolutely in the right place. Let's get into it.
Now, I'm not gonna lie, Kierkegaard is not a light read. His writing can feel dense, his words can feel harsh, for sure, but the clarity you get on the other side, it's like a lightning strike. Because his work isn't designed to just inform you, it's designed to do exactly what the title says. It's meant to provoke you. And yeah, he really doesn't pull any punches. I mean, look at this. Right out of the gate, he lays out his mission. His target wasn't the people outside the church, it was the people inside it. He wanted to wake up the so-called believers from what he saw as the deep spiritual sleep.
So, this leads to a pretty wild question, and it's one to really chew on. What if being a nice, polite, respectable person is actually the single greatest obstacle to having real living faith? This is the core paradox that Kierkegaard wants every single one of us to wrestle with.
You can kind of think of Kierkegaard as a sort of secret agent for God. His mission wasn't to come up with some brilliant new philosophy. No, his mission was to reintroduce authentic, radical Christianity back into what he called Christendom. That was his word for a society where saying I'm a Christian was like saying I breathe air. It was just the default setting, and because of that, it had lost all its power. And this is super important to get. He wasn't some theologian trying to add new doctrines. He was more like a human alarm clock. His whole goal was just to make people aware, to shake them out of that spiritual autopilot and force them to actually confront what it means to be an individual standing before God. Okay, so to really get what he was trying to do, we have to look at the problem he saw everywhere. He called this first and most common way of life the aesthetic sphere. It's a fancy name, but it basically just means living life on autopilot. You know this life, right? It's all about what feels good right now. It's about seeking pleasure, satisfying your immediate impulses. It's being a spectator in the stadium of your own life, not a player on the field. You're just drifting, tasting a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but never really committing to anything. And the signs of this life, men, they're everywhere. Real responsibility? Nope, they avoid that. Commitment? Too heavy. And when something goes wrong, oh, it's always someone else's fault. They think happiness comes from the outside, from stuff, from experiences, from other people. But on the inside, there's just not much there, a hollow core.
So, the big question is, how do you get out of this trap? How do you stop drifting? For Kierkegaard, it all boils down to one thing, one single powerful act. You have to choose.
This is maybe his most famous idea, the whole either-or thing. He says life puts this massive choice right in front of you. And get this, the biggest choice isn't good versus evil, not at all. It's the choice between living an intentional life or not choosing at all. And for him, just letting yourself drift is the worst choice you can possibly make. But once you do make that choice, once you decide to take responsibility and live by a moral code, boom, you just stepped into what he calls the ethical sphere. You're off the sidelines and on the field. You're not just your fleeting desires anymore, you are what you commit to. And the ethical person is a totally different animal from the drifter, right? They actually listen to their conscience. They own their stuff. They have, character, conviction. It's a huge step up from the aesthetic life. But, and this is a big but, for Kierkegaard, this still isn't the final destination. See, the problem with the ethical life is that it's all about universal rules that apply to everyone. It's about what's right for the community. But what happens when your highest calling, your personal duty to God, seems to shatter those very rules? This is where things get really intense. Just pause and think about this for a second. The ethical code is pretty clear on some things, right? A big one is, don't kill people. It's a universal good. But what if God himself, the absolute source of all morality, commanded you to break that rule? And this is exactly why the story of Abraham was so huge for Kierkegaard. God tells him, sacrifice your son. From an ethical standpoint, that's monstrous. It's unthinkable. It's just murder. But Abraham does something that defies all logic. He's willing to suspend the ethical, as Kierkegaard puts it. He takes this terrifying leap of faith, trusting his personal duty to God over the universal good. And that, right there, is what he calls the religious sphere. It's where it's just you, the single individual standing in a direct, absolute relationship with God, the absolute. And in that moment, that personal relationship trumps everything else, even the highest moral laws. It's a terrifying, lonely, and deeply personal place to be.
And that whole idea of standing alone, that is so key to understanding him. Because Kierkegaard just did not trust groups. He was deeply suspicious of committees, political parties, mass movements, anything he just lumped together and called the crowd. And he has this one line that just hits you like a ton of bricks. The crowd, he says, is the untruth. Why? Well, think about it. The crowd is the ultimate hiding place. It lets you off the hook. It's where your personal responsibility goes to die. The difference here is just night and day. This single individual, they're standing out in the open, alone before God, fully responsible. But in the crowd, that's where you hide. Your conscience gets turned off. Your personal responsibility gets watered down into a tiny, meaningless fraction. The crowd is all about looking to other people for approval. But the individual, they're being measured by a completely different standard. So, this is where it all comes together. See, Kierkegaard isn't some dusty philosopher you just study for a test. His whole life's work isn't a history lesson. It's a direct challenge, a provocation aimed squarely, well, it's aimed at you. He has this incredible metaphor for it. He says it's easy to build this huge, beautiful palace of ideas and beliefs, and then just stand outside and admire it, while you're actually living in a tiny shack next door. In spiritual life, he says, that's a total disaster. What you believe has to be the actual building you live in and day out. And that brings us to his final burning question for all of us. It's so easy to be an admirer, isn't it? To stand on the sidelines of faith and say, yeah, that's a great set of ideas. But are you just an admirer? Or are you a follower? Are you really willing to make the choice, to take that terrifying leap, and to actually live inside the house of your beliefs? That, right there, is Kierkegaard's provocation.